Good evening, campers. It's me, Kieran, and today we're going to be talking about The Appointment by Katarina Volckmer. Now, Volckmer is a German author. This is her first novel, her debut. It wasn't translated from the German. In fact, the German publishing industry didn't want to publish this at all. Volckmer, who now lives in London, has written this in English and has found Fitzuary Press to, well, publish this book. That was a really long way of just saying it's published in English. Why have you taken so long to say that? This novel, be it a black comedy that is excessively subversive and transgressive, talks about two things that seemingly wouldn't go together, but how they are framed on top of each other in order to discuss one another is unique. Which for some people is going to be a positive, for some people is going to be an absolute head sore. The appointment takes place during, would you believe it, an appointment. A young woman is being seen to by Dr. Seligman. And while he is between her legs, and of which the woman narrates to his head and always says that we can only see the top of it, she decides to use patient-doctor confidentiality in order to say whatever she wants, such as the fantasies that she has about Hitler, especially Nazi Germany and the rise of fascism. Being German, the protagonist understands her country's history and sees the Holocaust as a blot on it. That the German people understand it's part of their history, but don't want to discuss. That's not to say that they want to brush it under the carpet, or they don't want to acknowledge it, or they don't want to learn about it, but there is a silence over it. What does that pause mean? Volckmer, I must say, doesn't ascribe what current political spheres talk about, which is, well, if you don't talk about it, you're complicit, you're completely fine with it. That's not what Volckmer here is saying. It's that, well, people know, people acknowledge, it's just, do they want to talk about it all the time? Does a modern German citizen have to address the history of the Holocaust? How far can time go before you don't need to do that? Or is the Holocaust so abhorrent that, well, it needs to be addressed? Or, on the other hand, does that silence give it the weight? Does it give it the space that it needs to show how despicable the Holocaust was? But the protagonist's spiel does alert to the fact that, well, is it even a modern German woman's place to talk about the Holocaust? Is it the victims who should have everything to say? Which is juxtaposed to Dr. Seligman, who does not speak throughout all of this, but he is, in fact, Jewish and is bombarded by this information. It's macabre, but it's done in a way that we can see happening, which is people going, oh, wasn't this such a bad thing that happened to your race or to your people or to your culture? Like, people should talk about it more. I think it's really sad that people don't talk about these things. And maybe I'll tell you how bad they were, because maybe that'll give you a bit of get up and go to educate people. It's rife everywhere. Open up Twitter, someone's probably having the conversation as we speak. That is one part of the novel. The other topic that fits alongside it, if not on top of this, is the protagonist's struggle with her identity and her sexuality. Volckmer, for me, doesn't execute this well. And let's talk about the structure before we talk about what she's discussing. This is less than 100 pages long, and it is tangent galore. If the protagonist can jump from one topic to the other, it will happen. And the protagonist is dealing with, well, what about me? What about the individual? What's my history and where I am having trouble with my inner self? There's a blot that I don't want to talk about. There's something that I don't think other people should talk about, that there should be a silence upon that. And who is it to tell me who I am of what I am, and where this transition is to happen, or if it is beginning to unfold, do we talk about that? And what's the importance of that silence? Is it as grandiose as a country's history to a personal history? It feels as though Volckmer has constructed this, like she's done the knitting, she just hasn't tied her ends in. There's a lot of places where you go, where are we going with this tangent? I don't understand how this relates. Is this effective in what it does? I think people are going to move between yes and no. It gives you the understanding of what Volckmer is trying to do, but neither do you feel assaulted by the information, neither are you lulled into the ramblings. There's a sense of bemusement with all of this. Some of this writing is shock value of, well, look what I can say. And it's like the literary equivalent of a jump scare. Like, you get the reaction that you want from the audience, but it's almost cheaply done. It doesn't add to the whole of it. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. But I think if you're curious about this, give it a go. I think this is one. I don't think it's divisive. It's a bit weird.